It's Destination Newry. It's the morning program, and we're from Warren Point today. Rather different to what you might have expected, but here we are in the library of Warren Point, enjoying ourselves. Made very, very welcome by Rosemary here, Rosemary Lavery. And I was telling Rosemary earlier, this, by the way, is Michelle Corkey. How are you, Michelle?
Very well, thank you,
Headmistress of St. Mark. Is it headmistress? Is it principal? Is it the chief teacher? What do we call you?
Headmistress seems so austere, Rowan, so I much prefer principal.
She's a principal. Yeah, I tell you. But it's a lovely school there. And I was saying to Rosemary that I remember 50 years ago in Newry Library, there was another Lavery there, Susan Lavery. And Susan was the librarian there, you know.
Oh, okay.
And Michelle has just suddenly made me feel very, very ancient indeed. She tells me she went to school with two of my daughters in Our Ladies, that is, in Newry.
Yes,
and a wonderful school it is there too. But yeah, the tradition of wonderful school seems to have followed you, because there are few any better than St. Mark's in Warren Point,
yes.
and you're the principal there.
I'm the principal now for almost 6 years. Next week is my 6th anniversary.
How long is Geraldine in at Our Ladies? Geraldine Pettigrew? Would she be 6 or more? A wee bit more.
Probably
again, where does
10.
time go, for goodness sake?
It goes very quickly.
You'd be pleased to know that Geraldine Pettigrew, the headmistress or the principal at Our Ladies, was on my programme 2 weeks ago.
Oh, very good.
We were shooting the breeze about 125 years, and I didn't know that they came to Warren Point in the beginning when they came up from Dublin.
No, neither did
they had a place in Dublin. So, what drew you to St. Mark's? Who did you replace?
I replaced Colm Clark. Colm was the principal and was principal for 6-8 years. I'm just not sure of the detail.
And did he follow John
That's
Cull,
correct, yes. John was
went to heaven a wee bit too soon.
He certainly did, in post. In post, yes.
He died with his boots on.
He certainly
and
did.
He would have loved that. John Cull would have loved that.
Did. And his family are still very loyal and very supportive
they would
of
be,
the school.
Of course.
Marie is a great asset to the school.
Maria's a lovely lady. Maria Cull. Another, of course, Our Ladies person, I rather think.
Yes.
You Our Ladies guys stick closely together.
We certainly do. We never wander too far.
You never do. You're all good there.
So I'm the 5th successive principal.
So what were you doing in your profession when the post came up, when Colm was going to leave?
I was vice principal in charge of curriculum in St. Louise's Comprehensive College on the Falls Road in Belfast.
Wow, you were there with Sister Genevieve.
No, Sister Genevieve was before my time,
before your time.
To say.
She was on the Broadcasting Council of the BBC when I was the Deputy Head of News and Current Affairs.
Formidable lady.
She was a formidable lady, but a great fan of mine who supported me all the way.
Very good.
Knew of the difficulties that I had to come across and deal with and all the rest of it. But it was great. It was lovely to know her.
Left a tremendous legacy.
She did, surely.
No, the principal is Carmel McCartan, and it was Carmel who appointed me.
Absolutely.
And I was there for 2.5 years.
Wow.
And I am a local girl. I live in Newry.
Yeah.
And I saw the post, and I thought, I think I could deal with
that
challenge.
Deal with that. Yeah, yeah.
So
well, there are not too many Corkeys around Newry.
No, there are not too many.
So you found yourself a Corkey heart to fall in love with.
I did indeed.
Yeah, and you probably would have sent away for him to Lisburn or Hillsborough or somewhere. There's lots of them there.
As far away as Bessbrook.
Bessbrook, Bessbrook Corkey, that's what you got there.
Gavin's from Bessbrook.
And is Gavin a teacher as well?
No, Gavin's an accountant.
Thanks be to God for that. There's nothing worse than two teachers living together.
One's quite sufficient.
I think so, because... So you got the job, and you came in... Now, everyone coming to a new job perceives the challenges that new job presents. What were the challenges that you were coming to deal with at St. Mark's?
I was very blessed because, as you said, St. Mark's is a great school and has a tradition of being a good school. But there has been a lot of change in education in recent years. And we were just implementing the new Northern Ireland curriculum. So we had all of that upheaval. We were also coming into severe financial crisis, not St. Mark's, the education system.
Yeah.
So money was a premium. And a very interesting challenge for us was the establishment of the area learning community.
What is the area learning community?
It is where all of the schools in the area are working together to make sure that there's the best possible educational opportunity for all young people.
Well, you're not at each other's throats.
In fact, the exact opposite.
You're all working together.
Work together. So if a child can't pursue a course in my school because of numbers or whatever, then we have a great collaboration with St. Mary's High School.
So you make a call.
We make
Mary's
a call.
High School is fantastic school.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, look, I've dropped this. Mary's High School, they're the twin school to my schools in northwest Nigeria.
Very good.
And they've been there for the last 10 years, 7, 8 years now,
yes.
and they're constantly. Morris came out to see the schools in Africa, and Paulina, the headmistress, on her first ever trip out of Africa,
came back to St.
Mary's in Newry. That's
Very
amazing.
Nice. Yeah. I was a teacher in St. Mary's for 13 years.
Wow. You would have been under Florence.
No, under Anne Valley and Geraldine McClory.
Where in goodness gracious name does time go?
I know, it's very frightening.
It's just frightening indeed. I'm fairly far along the timeline at the moment, I tell you. It's all
relative.
Yeah, it is, of course. So you needed to secure fund. What part of you, when you become a principal, ceases being a teacher and suddenly becomes an accountant? God knows.
Well, unfortunately, that's the problem with the job. You lose your focus on learning and teaching if you allow that to happen, because the administrative side is so burdensome. But
yes.
I'm very blessed. I have a great senior teacher who's in charge of finance, which means that he keeps an eye on that ball, which allows me to look towards learning and teaching.
So you're kind of there with teaching and learning focused, and you continue to turn the little screw, the little knob on the focusing mechanism to make sure that it doesn't wander too far away from the ideal that you want.
And we work very closely, I have to say, with outside agencies who come in and do a lot of training, and we're delighted that just last term the Education and Training Inspectorate were out in our maths department and declared it outstanding. Wow. One of only 2 maths departments in Northern Ireland who are outstanding.
Wow.
So that's the tremendous work we do with learning and teaching.
That's St. Paul's, not St. Paul's, that's St. Mark's.
St. Mark's is
in Warrenpoint.
But the other school with outstanding in their maths department is St. Killian's.
Oh, I thought, yes, I got
former
that.
Garran Tower.
Yeah, Garran Tower. Goodness gracious, names from the past as well. You'd wonder why they ever changed Garran Tower, wouldn't you, for goodness sake?
Well, I suppose it was a change of ethos and a change of style, yeah.
Absolutely. But not sufficient for you to take on the responsibilities of the school. You then open up the bag that is the Catholic head teachers of Northern Ireland, and
Catholic
principals of Northern Ireland, and you're there to do what? You're in charge of that at the moment.
I'm the chairperson. I'm the chairperson.
So first of all, what do they do, and what's your job?
The Catholic Principals Association was established about 5 years ago, and it was a result of the Belfast non-selective principals coming together and trying to do something about this terrible sham we call selection.
Yeah, you're against selection.
Absolutely.
I am too.
Fundamentally opposed.
I got a PhD in failing my 11 plus. I really did.
Did it do? I mean,
I never was interested in learning, but my father paid for me to the grammar school, and I put up with that for a wee while. But I was always more interested in what was going on outside the window, and that stood me in great stead over my life. It took me on my many, many journeys across the world, and I did all right at the end of the day. So if you're not crucifying people because they can't remember their tables at 11,
that's correct, yes.
You're getting it right.
That's exactly right. So we feel very, very strongly about that. And Seamus Quinn was the first chair of Catholic Principals Association, and it has passed along the line, and I took over from Oliver Mooney 2 years ago.
Oliver of St. Paul's?
That's correct.
What
Oliver
a lovely
was the
man.
previous
He was in with me a month ago. He's now retired.
He is indeed, yes.
And he's a great, you all walk together in a coterie of excellence.
Yes, and that's all we're looking for, excellence in Catholic schools.
Yeah.
And we do not need selection to be excellent.
Who's trying to pull you
teaching.
down? I should know more about this than I do. But who's trying to force through the selection process?
Well, nobody's trying to force it through because we have it. It's here. It's we who are trying to change the system. And Rowan, like everything else, when you try to change something that has been a long-standing tradition and, as far as some people are concerned, is working, you're up against an awful lot of resistance.
Wow.
But we don't need to look very far for some really excellent examples. I mean, we were discussing Fergal McCormick earlier on.
Yes.
You don't need a college education to get on in life.
Yeah.
Not every child is the same. Children learn at different levels. They develop at different levels. Why are we imposing a test at 11 that defines a child?
Yeah.
It's not Catholic and it's not ethical.
Well, no, I agree with you. Fergal was making the point when he was on my programme a fortnight ago, when we were talking about one of your students, Dara Carr. We were musing about whether it was really necessary for a young accountant to go into university, or might he be better off going into an apprenticeship immediately. Like, those are intelligent things to be discussing, aren't they?
Absolutely, because it's different horses for different courses. And if we all do the same thing, where's the variety and the challenge in life? We all have different talents, we all have different gifts. In this Catholic Schools Week, that's what we're celebrating. That's Catholic Schools Week started yesterday, yes, and it's about celebrating our diversity and our unity. And if we're pushing all of the children down the same road,
no good.
Where are we going
I love
to go?
diversity, you know, and that's why, because that's why I value a Catholic education system, a state education system, which would be populated mostly by, traditionally by Protestants. Now, as many shades as possible in the garden, please.
That's correct.
Let me have a variegated borderline. Let's have it, and no one's threatening anybody.
And that's where our early learning community is becoming it's a great opportunity for children to share in education experiences. We have children go to Newry High School, we have Newry High School going to St. Paul's. I mean, the opportunities are vast. It's marvellous, absolutely marvellous.
You've come so very, very far along the road, because I remember when my third girl was being educated, she went to Newry High out of one of the others. She went there for whatever, but she actually drew upon herself the ire of the bishop and everybody else. There could not have been in those days a Catholic priest going in to deliver a Catholic education. Those days have gone, and thankfully so, you know.
And that's what we celebrate about being Catholic. You don't have to be Catholic to come to St. Mark's.
Really?
Oh, absolutely not. That's where our inclusivity...
You'll give them the forms to join.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Nothing could be further from the truth. We have many...
It's valuing difference.
Absolutely.
If you don't, everyone wants everyone to march to the same drumbeat.
And it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
European Day of Languages, we have approximately 35 children who are not from Northern Ireland. We have Polish, we have Romanian, we have Russian. They celebrated their faith and they celebrated their culture for the rest of us. And we get an insight into them, and they feel valued and worthwhile because they're telling us about their life. And it's marvellous, yes. And that's what being Catholic is all about.
Yeah. You're fairly committed to your religion, yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be at all committed to my religion, but I'd be my traditional religion, but I'd be totally committed to my spirituality. But life has taken me on that journey.
Yes.
And it's a journey that is interesting, because you recognize the existence, or the likelihood, the probability, I would go as far as to say, of a God existing, and you cherish that. But I couldn't even join a golf club, never mind join a religious club. I wouldn't be any good in that. But it doesn't do any harm at all.
Well, as principal of a Catholic school and the chairperson of the Catholic Principals Association, I would like to think my Catholic faith is important to me.
No, it would need to be. But I mean, again, horses for courses.
That's correct, yes.
You couldn't hack it my way, I couldn't hack it your way. And that's what it's about.
And isn't the world a better place for that?
I believe so, because you can grow from my experiences, I can grow from yours.
That's exactly right.
Some of my best friends are Catholics. Did I really say that? I don't think so. Oh my goodness gracious! But more seriously, today is what is today? It's
Holocaust Day,
Holocaust
National
Day.
Holocaust Day.
Wow.
Yes.
There was a great Catholic, Maximilian Kolbe. What a man! Wow.
That's correct.
Maximilian Kolbe was the Catholic priest who stood up to the Nazis and said, "Take my life, not my brother's life, because my brother has family, and kill me and not kill him." That's as good as it gets,
That's
really,
as good as
isn't
it gets, yeah.
It is
That's
indeed.
what our faith's about.
Yeah, absolutely. Your school day today, now, what are you going back to get involved in?
I'm going back to get involved in a number of meetings. We meet regularly with year heads to monitor the pastoral care and the academic development of our children.
Wow.
And we have our Year 11 parent-teacher meeting this afternoon. So parents are very keen and anxious to hear how their young people are doing in their first year of GCSE. So it's a busy day today.
You don't do them the disservice of putting them off with a good answer. You tell them like it is.
Absolutely. I'm afraid that's what we work very hard at. When we write reports or when we speak to parents, we say, here is what your child is doing very well. Now, here is what they need to do if they want to do even better again, or they want to get the highest marks. I mean, I just came rushing down from an assembly where one of our 5th years was going to be presented with a certificate. from the Council of Education and Examinations and Assessment, having received the highest marks in Northern Ireland in GCSE ICT.
Oh, well done, St. Mark's.
Yes,
well done, that pupil, I tell you.
So that's what we're all about, working very hard together to make sure that our children get the best opportunity.
Well, very much want you to take our destination at Newry on board as part and parcel of your school hinterland.
Certainly.
So for those of your children who want at any stage to take an interest in broadcasting or whatever associated disciplines, our studio in Newry is constantly open to you.
That would be marvellous.
You're welcome all the time.
Oh, I know they've been up a number of times.
Great yes. people. So Michelle Corkey, wish you well.
Thank you.
The Corkey I knew actually was David Corkey. He eventually became a Lord Mayor of a city in the northeast of England. And he and I worked with Oxfam, and he worked with the Voluntary Committee on Overseas Aid and Development. And the pair of us in the year of the World Cup that England won, Corkey and I went off to the Congress Bow at The Hague in Holland, and we lay down in front of the Dutch royal family demanding 1% of GNP in the developed world to go towards the majority world. That's a long time ago. But to this day, they still haven't managed the 1%, which is sad too, isn't it?
It is indeed.
It is sad. Michelle, we're going to play you some music now.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Ron.
you for coming in.
You're
a
most
wonderful
welcome.
person.
Thank
very,
you very
very
much.
impressive, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much,
Michelle
Ron.
Corkey there. Music maestro, please.